King of Podcasts proudly presents The Broadcasters Podcast, a weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Thanks for joining me for another Broadcasters Podcast. I really appreciate all of you joining me for another program. No interview this week, but again, I am working on a few interviews that I should have scheduled within the next 2 weeks so I can get interviews back on board. If you know anybody that would like to be a part of the program and should be a great guest for the program, by all means, please email me, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. That's kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. Yes, the voice is a little bit weird. Every podcaster has to say if they feel sick, talk about what your voice sounds like. So, yes, mine is. Allergies decided to kick in, but, you know, I'm doing what I can to try to keep the voice from crackling and starting to go away. So it is what it is right now. Anyway, a lot of stories to get into tonight. First off, I want to talk about Ricky Gervais. And I don't want to go too much into what he said, which is what everybody talked about. His monologue during the opening of the Golden Globe Awards. And how he basically woke up Hollywood and gave him a wake-up call. Now, doesn't mean Hollywood's going to heed the wake-up call, but I thought what he said was really important. And I was really surprised at some of the people and how they spoke about his monologue. I want to point on a couple of stories that talked about that. Because Ricky Gervais, according to a couple of stories that I'm going to go into tonight, teaches Hollywood what speaking truth to power really means and why his criticism of Hollywood is so satisfying. We're also going to talk about some top Hollywood executives that are looking ahead to the year of disruption, including the labor union. So we'll get some of the word of what some of the top Hollywood brass are going to be saying about this coming up in 2020. A very interesting story that I just thought I need to go ahead and just address. Supposedly women didn't talk much in 2019 movies. One of the movies that really got called out was Anna Paquin's role in The Irishman. So we'll talk about that very shortly. And also an interesting thing going on in the movie theaters. And I've noticed this, at least with my movie theater. And I'm sure maybe some of you have seen where we're starting to see advertisements within the trailers. Not only do we have the trailers going longer, but now we're getting ads within it in premium spots. We'll talk about that coming up. And then U.S. music industry, a couple of notes of end of year stats that we were getting. A streaming milestone for 2019. Plus, I'm going to talk about how there's a story that was said to be debunking a myth in radio about how many young people want to be in the radio business. We're going to talk all about that here on the program. Megan McArdle wrote a story in the Washington Post that really did speak a lot to the right part. Now, regardless of those that might have been very much politically inclined to take what Ricky Gervais said against Hollywood, but the fact of the matter is he talked about Hollywood hypocrisy, which is absolutely true. Ricky Gervais said some things to the Hollywood elite, actors, producers, network executives, media moguls, the top of the top that came to this event at the Beverly Hills Hilton. And the truth was to be said, they really did need to be put in their place. Content creators right now, in an era where we're having labor unions now that are going to start getting riled up for 2020, where it is so hard and there is a censorship and there is a blacklist and there's a thing where certain projects are only going to be the ones that will get green lit. And it's so hard to get past the barriers that are out there. And it's about what you know and who you know. And that's really important to be brought up. And that's what they talked about. That's what Ricky Gervais said at the Golden Globe. So Gervais talked about, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So if you win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. Okay. Whatever the merits that he gave of this, and this is what Megan McArdle says, it was refreshing to see someone stand up at a Hollywood award ceremony and actually speak truth to power, by which I mean the actual powers in their own lives, not a hypothetical power structure with no real prospect of striking back. Moving on to the story, Megan also mentions how Gervais neatly illustrated exactly why so many people resent the increasingly ritualized ceremonial sanctimony. Because it turns out that this may be exactly what people hate hypocrites so much. They fool us into giving them credit for holding potentially costly moral beliefs without actually paying those costs. That's the whole point. When I look at the people that were probably in that audience, and listen, there's a lot of talented artists and performers in that room. Don't get me wrong. There was. But my thing is that they are sanctimonious and they are too big for their britches. And they feel like that whatever they say is that they're a demagogue. They're this political power. They have a power that they are not aware of how to use it for good. They might be a little bit philanthropic. That might make them feel better. But the truth is, they're not helping their fellow artists get somewhere. They're never going to do that. How many of them are actually going to stand up for new and upcoming artists that are out there? Or those that have been in the trenches that really want to get themselves somewhere? How often does that happen? And that's the whole point. Who are those that are going to go and stand up to the agents, stand up to the networks, stand up to the movie studios? And when there's a good project ready to come out, how often do they go ahead and come up and say, okay, I'm going to executive produce this. I'm going to bring this up. Ask yourself that. Because how many people are out there that are really going to do that? There's not many. And that's exactly where we're coming from here. What bothers us most, Meghan Markle continues, suggests it's not the disconnect between values and behavior, something we're all guilty of, but rather trying to gain special status by pretending to be more moral than you are. And that is precisely what Hollywood so often seems to do. It complains about the patriarchy, then we find out it was sheltering a Harvey Weinstein, lecturing us on global warming while quietly flying around on private jets. Hypocrisy isn't the worst vice, but it is one of the most grating, especially from them. The people on that stage are already better looking than most mere mortals and richer and more famous. And by the way, they get to look better because of the thousands and thousands of dollars of makeup and dresses and fashion that they get to make them look as good as they do. You got to ask yourself that question. Now, the people on that stage, somehow it isn't enough. They also want credit for being more moral than everybody else. And there they cross the line. Exactly. I always talk about politics, but Meghan Markle says it exactly right. There's something to be trying to be righteous and sanctimonious about your craft. No, you're an actor, you're an actress, you're a performer. You know, you can actually speak when you act upon what you say. But when you start having certain beliefs that are given to you that might not be those that are yours, that might just have been fed to you, or you might have been told to say that, when you're really not any better than anybody else. Just because you have the power and you have the presence to be on a movie screen or in front of a TV screen, and you can actually reach out to millions and millions of people any given time, well, that's a different story. So with that said, I applaud Megan for actually saying there. I thought that was very well said. A couple other stories I want to bring up when it comes to Ricky Gervais. I want to bring up the fact that even though he called them out, it didn't matter because the audience still decided to do what they wanted to do at the Golden Globes. They all decided to go political anyway. Okay, whatever. Another story from Psychology Today talks about how the criticism of Hollywood was so satisfying because it really did get people really all up and at it. Gad Saad, a PhD in Psychology Today, wrote that that Hollywood award shows serve as a grotesque manifestation of self-congratulatory debauchery, stemming from people who are otherwise extraordinary and how ordinary they are. Their sole claim to fame is that they pretend. They don't cure diseases. They pretend they do. They don't save puppies from burning buildings, but they pretend they do. That's the point. Human brains have not evolved with the foresight of cinema, so when the average person sees an famous actor who played a superhero in his or her last role, they respond in a manner that is akin to actually seeing and meeting the superhero who saved the world. This adoration bestowed on celebrities coupled with the wealth that they accrued turns them into our society's royal class. So Ricky Gervais steps into the room, smashes celebrities' privileged safe spaces. They're not used to being called out, let alone from one of their own. After all, Gervais is a world-famous celebrity in his own right. So he is part of the ecosystem of grand pretenders, yet he possesses the fortitude to call out what he sees as their moral hypocrisy, baffling ignorance, stifling herd mentality, and nauseating virtue signaling. He does not suffer fools gladly. He stares at his pampered, narcissistic, and self-indulgent audience and tells them what millions of people are thinking. He does it with spicy humor. Throughout history, great satirists have used their rhetorical abilities to challenge the powerful, and Ricky Gervais is the latest instantiation of this long tradition. He uses his comedic talent to mock an out-of-touch elite class of professional fakers. Finally, this writer says, as such, continue to entertain us, but please don't pretend that you are more moral, more intelligent, and more virtuous than the rest of us. Gervais's message resonates because he uses his star power to remind his colleagues that they are full of it. And in this sense, he is a celebrity of the people. Amen. Well said. And I just hope that all of you out there that are going to be content creators, that are content creators, there's something to be said about humbling yourself. Being able to not necessarily show shame, but showing that you are mortal, that you are just an everyday human being. That really deep down, besides the spotlight and who you are, some of the best celebrities in the world are those that are not much different than themselves. That all they really are is just an amplification of who they are in real life. But for some people to go and turn into something that they're not, I mean, sometimes you can't avoid it, but then there are also those in the industry that don't put their politics or their virtue signaling or any of their causes in front of anybody. There are some people that are better off not trying to go ahead and try to make everybody feel sorry for themselves or feel like there's some kind of plight they need to be worried about. Okay, we've been going through this for a long time. Marlon Brando did the thing where he brought an Indian lady up there, talking about the plight of the Indians, American Indian, right? Indigenous peoples. So we've been seeing this for over 50 years. No doubt about it. And that's okay. But until reach a certain level, all I'm saying to everybody out there is, please make sure that when you're getting into this business, however you're getting into it, try to be the same person when you're coming out of it. Or do not lose who you really are. Because that's the most important thing that I can tell you, that it's a great lesson that's being told in this whole thing, is that to try to stay who you are. Stay true to yourself. And truth to power. You know what I mean? Ricky Gervais didn't have to do what he did. But it was an important lesson he told. And the fact that back in the day, people could get roasted all the time and be called out for the bullshit. Well, that was a thing we used to see at every freaking Dean Martin celebrity roast. Or any roast we ever saw. And that's good. It's healthy to let people know that sometimes you're a caricature of yourself. And you need to be called on your shit. Called to the floor. And it's okay to do that. And we shouldn't be afraid to do that. It's out of respect to one another. To make sure that we're all, you know, that one person, when they start, they want to put their chin up and they want to just put themselves out as something that they're not. I mean, they want to try to put themselves in some kind of air that's higher than everybody else. Well, that doesn't work. Because you have to remember the people that you are entertaining. All walks of life, all different diverse areas of different financial modes, right? Of different salaries, of different levels of income, different levels of living. I mean, everybody that's out there, okay? There's a lot of people that it's not easy for them to go ahead and scramble up, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? To put together $15 a month for like a Netflix and a Hulu or whatever they want, some streaming services so they can watch your content. Or just put down 20, 40, 60, 80 bucks to bring themselves or some other people to go catch a movie every week. All right? Not everybody can be like me watching a movie and paying $21 a month. No, It's not that easy. Or make the time for it. People have lives. And so we just hope that our content creators, that you were in that same level yourselves at one point. And even if you weren't, please be aware of who you have that is your audience. You want to play to your audience. You want to respect your audience. You don't look down on your audience. You want to give the audience the respect that you would want given yourself. The golden rule should apply to everybody. And so hopefully there are those out there that realize that. Now, besides what was being talked about during the Golden Globes on stage, there was what was being talked about on the red carpet, which I'm sure some of you probably didn't talk about, but this is interesting conversations. The largest media conglomerates, according to Variety.com, are those in the throes of a transition that has been simplistically described as the onset of streaming wars, a response to the disruption that has touched every corner of the industry. Now, the conversations are ranging from laying odds on winners and losers in the direct-to-consumer gold rush, to the shifting sands in the film business, to hand-wringing over the possibility of a work stoppage, crippling the town later in the year as the Writers Guild of America, Directors Guild of America, and SAG-AFTRA headed to master contract negotiations. Thank you. I'm talking about it only for a year. Thank you very much. Then there's also the lingering impasse between Hollywood's top talent agencies and the Writers Guild, a fight that has sparked lawsuits and a mass exodus of writers from agency representation. Again, I've been talking about this for over a year. Ron Meyer, co-founder of CAA, NBC Universal Vice Chairman. I remember reading the book with Michael Ovitz, and they mentioned that, quote, "It makes no sense to me that they're not talking to each other. Every deal can be made. Both sides can have reasonable arguments. I say everybody get in a room and don't let them leave until they resolve it." Comcast Chairman CEO Brian Roberts says he's encouraged by the trends and he sees prospects in the NBC Universal's growth in streaming. He says, quote, "The momentum of broadband and streaming is pretty exciting with all the streaming that's happening. People love their broadband. We really have a lot of momentum. Hope, blah, 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 blah." Bob Bakish, Viacom CBS President CEO, is prepared for tough decisions in the coming months. The entertainment cable programming business moving along remains a strong source of cash flow for the major media conglomerates, but seen as a melting ice cube for brands that don't have the cachet with viewers to make the leap to an on-demand streaming world. Disney is experimenting with branding with some of FX's highest-end adult scripted series as FX on Hulu, and presenting them as streaming exclusives. That decision, unveiled in November, is sure to rankle some of Disney and FX's longtime cable distribution partners. And others are having to contend with existing cable assets that do not have the same marquee as FX. Baggage says we're an industry in transition. We're moving from overwhelmingly linear consumption to on-demand consumption. So we'll evolve our product line and how we invest. The good news is because of the breadth of the assets of the combined company, we're now very well positioned to do that. So they're all saying, okay, we weren't behind in this whole digital disruption. We had a plan in place, and now we're ready to go. Well, they're still having to go ahead and go up against Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and the others, and Apple TV. And some of these other network conglomerates that are going to have their own services, Peacock and NBC Universal and others, they're all going to be trying to compete. And I don't know what they're going to be able to do to go after these other channels that have already come into place. There's only going to be so many available to stay on top. So I think that mergers are going to happen. We talked about that last week, and I really feel like something like that's going to happen at some point. Another thing that came up, and that's about the movies. I thought it was very interesting. Hollywood Reporter talks about National CineMedia CEO touts big screen advertising closer to movies. So here's the idea. There's more people in the theaters. The lights are down. Your phones are off. You're paying more attention to the advertising. So in-theater advertising firm National CineMedia touted a new way to boost revenues. They're now running big screen commercials closer to movie screenings and among trailers at the local multiplex. So now movie theaters are starting to run about 20 minutes of advertising before trailers and ahead of advertised showtimes. I mean, I'll tell you, last week when I watched Bombshell, it was 25 minutes before the movie started. Okay, I think it was a 10:30 start. Or no, it was a 9:05 start. The movie did not start until 9:30. I kid you not. So you're probably seeing about 5 to 6 trailers. And then a commercial now. Not a short one, a long one, an hour, a minute-long commercial at least in between. CineMedia recently introduced a platinum spot for advertising, usually up to 1 minute long, to play just before the second to last or final movie trailer and closer to a feature attraction. So yes, when everybody you know is going to be sitting down, ready to watch the movie, and they'll have gotten there so late that they're absolutely going to be sure to be there to watch it, because they're not going to, I mean, if you get there that late, man, I'll tell you what. But, you know, the movies now, they start so late anyway because of all the advertising. That's what happens. So it's now happening in Regal Cinemas, which is mine, and Cinemark theaters, for venues earning a premium from marketers as the play to a captive theater audience, unable to zap ads or surf the internet. So basically, when you're in the theater, you can't turn on your phone, you can't do any surfing around or doing something else. You are there stuck on that screen watching for your movie to come up. So the best possible engagement, getting eyes glued to the movie screen, they're putting a big price tag on it. And National CineMedia has also introduced a pre-show program of on-screen ads to run for 5 minutes past the movie, post the movie showtime. 6 minutes of super valuable inventory, which has had a lot of success selling of inventory in the fourth quarter. And the new on-screen advertising shuffle is finding acceptance with moviegoers. Yeah, it doesn't make much of a difference to me either. It's what they're going to do anyway. Because somehow, some way, there are advertising professionals out there that will find a way to get their advertisements out there. So good luck with that. They just found a way to definitely, absolutely watch that. And that's what's going to go on. Can't knock them for that. Somehow, some way, placement of advertising is going to go in all the different platforms we're on. Movies just found a very creative way. And we're paying to go ahead and watch those movies. And we're still seeing advertisements within them. So don't be surprised if the streaming platforms follow suit at some point for a premium spot within their programming. Not later on, but at the beginning, I could totally see that. Some of these places are going to do that. Just wait and see. Or you're going to have to pay a big ticket price for no commercials at all. How much are you willing to pay? Got to ask yourself the question. Let me get into music and radio real quick. Interesting music story from Pitchfork. Lil Nas X, Billie Eilish, Post Malone, Ariana Grande were among the most popular streaming artists of the year as the U.S. music industry hit a milestone in 2019. Streaming music over 1 trillion streams. Radio is missing out. Last year, 2018, 887.4 billion streams. 2019, 1.15 trillion audio and music video streams. It's according to Billboard. It's according to Nielsen's annual year-end report on the music industry. The most streams of all was Old Town Road, Lil Nas X, 2.5 billion streams. A billion less than the runner-up, Post Malone and Sway Lee's Sunflower. Then you had Billie Eilish's Bad Guy, Ariana Grande's Seven Rings, and Baby Shark as the top 5 most streamed songs in the music industry. And radio is missing out on the monetization of that. And that's just telling you more people are going to streaming to listen to their content. 80%. We've talked about it. Now, one thing I also noticed in the technology space, which I thought, I don't know if this is necessarily in the broadcasters podcast spectrum, but I figured I'd bring it up. Why is it all these different industries that are mass media, why do they always have to go ahead and unionize? So there's a major union that's launching a campaign to organize video game and tech workers. So a new campaign launched this week by the nation's largest labor unions, spearheaded by one of the leading video game industry activists in Southern California. They want to have an organization called CODE, the Campaign to Organize Digital Employees, a new project for the Communication Workers of America, CWA, aimed specifically at unionizing video game and tech companies. Conversations between the CWA and Game Workers Unite, a grassroots organization that pushed for wall-to-wall unionization of the $43 billion video game industry, alongside conversations with organizers across the larger tech industry. And according to this, the lead organizer says, we've been watching the amazing organizing of workers across the country, and workers themselves reach out to us while doing that amazing self-organizing. Can we do this in partnership? The union declines to specify how much money it was putting behind the new effort, but has put 2 organizers on payroll to lead the support, with support from dozens of CWA staff members across the country. This is a big mistake. Hey, you guys want to go all Teamsters, Jimmy Hoffa, video game and tech workers? Be my guest. But look at what it's done to the digital media spectrum. Look what Hollywood's going through right now. Is it really a smart idea to unionize? Are you really going to do that much better? I don't know if it's something that is really worth the fight to unionize here. I just thought this was an amazing story, and I thought, man, I hope people don't realize that, now, I get the working conditions. This is the reason why they're talking about this. Working conditions in the video game industry brought up the question of unionization because at a 2019 video game developer conference, the industry's practice of making employees work 100-hour weeks for months on end to finish a game in time for the preset delivery date, often without extra pay, practice known as crunch, came under fire in discussions among workers, as did the rolling layoffs that come when companies staff up and shed jobs to fit cyclical production schedules. So, hey, I understand where you're coming from by being upset with the kind of work you're going through. But then again, the unions are just going to make it worse. And the unions and what these companies are going to have to deal with now, they're not going to want to deal with unions, or they're just going to fold. Look at what digital media did. In this new age, is this a good idea to go with? I think not. So I hope the video game programmers and the tech people are out there. I hope they realize what they're doing. I understand you don't want to work those kind of grueling hours, and you think the union is going to be your answer. It's not. It's finding a different job that will just treat you different. I hope you guys figure that out. Don't do this altogether. I hope they don't figure this out. But they're going to anyway. Somebody's got it in their head. What are you going to do about it? Finally, I want to talk about debunking a big myth about radio, because this was an interesting story that somebody put out there. And I thought, man, who thought this was the right idea to try to put this prop-up story? And listen, another thing against Tanner Chambers, who's the guy that's being featured in this story. But there's a Q&A they did with him where he's now on commercial radio, and he's now getting to work in radio. It's something he wanted to do. Let me get this story from Radio Inc. They said it's been said many times that young adults exiting college do not want to join the ranks of radio. Over the past 6 months, we found that statement to be false, they said. So they're going to use one example here. They don't have multiple examples, just Tanner Chambers here. He's the morning show co-host for Amaturo Media in Santa Rosa, California. He runs the production board and does on-air duties, produces video content for the show, and content is repurposed for Facebook and Instagram. He's also moonlighting as a stand-up comedian. He's 23 years old, has been in commercial radio for 4 years. Now, Tanner says that I've always had an interest in the entertainment industry, specifically radio. Radio connects in a powerful way that is unique compared to other platforms. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, I fell in love with Kiss FM and one of the towns named Bender. He was able to connect to our community through humor, memorable benchmarks, and community service. I didn't realize radio was a tangible profession until I joined my college radio station, which was KCWU. From there, I experimented, found my voice, started maturing my on-air personality, adapting it for commercial radio. He was represented by Paul Anderson of Workhouse Media, so we had an agent get him into this job. Paul Anderson is with Workhouse Media, like I said. And according to him, he guided and educated him on the business and ethics of radio. And they've been working together since he was 19 and helped him to become more marketable. Now, Workhouse Media on LinkedIn, it's a multi-platform talent and content management company. Holistic approach to talent management, extending media creative partnerships into new areas of opportunity and helping clients develop identities in social media and authors, television producers, and hosts. Okay, I don't know what this is. It's like some kind of a talent agency, but again, there aren't those kind of agencies anymore. So this guy talking about being able to get in the radio, he found somebody as a way in, a conduit. But if I go back and look at Paul Anderson's career, if I want to take a look and see what he's done, well, as is this connection in Workhouse Media, which he's been doing for 19 years. So I have no clue who Paul Anderson is and what this company is, because if you go to the website, it's a contact form. There's nothing else to it. So I'm not sure what to think about this guy and what he does. So try to go ahead and hit him up and see if he'll do an interview with me so I can find out and really vet out who this guy really is. Paul Anderson. Interesting. I'm guessing he probably runs some kind of a thing where people pay him to get vetted and be trained so he can work somewhere else. I'm believing that must be what kind of agency it is. But I digress. Now, he talked about the people that listen to radio that are associated with him, what they think about it. He says, many people my age enjoy the convenience. Even though we have the world at our fingertips, terrestrial radio is the easiest option. Who wrote this for him? 23-year-old Tanner Chambers. Okay, come on. Who wrote this corporate swill? Millennials and Gen Zers complain that radio has become predictable, noting contests, segments, imaging, and other on-air products are very similar. People my age want to be entertained in a unique fashion that feels new and uncharted. How about just getting it back the way it was that worked? Anyways. He also says, countering the argument that radio is a dying medium, he says, okay, he talked about an emergency with wildfires in Sonoma County, California. All right. Commercial radio is the last reliable source of mass communication. This is a rare occurrence that people will use radio to tap into information when Wi-Fi and other ways of communication are down. So his argument, I'm sorry, Tanner, it sucks. It's not a good representation of the business. A dying medium, this is not the way you answer. That's not how you counter the argument. You know, how about talking about some of the charitable work that some of these stations do? And there's not many that do, are there? Or how about some people that are able to go and do, something? Hosts that are able to go and get people together, maybe an event, or, I don't know, bring people in love, or, talk somebody off a building, whatever. Something. Real live interaction with your audience. Well, I don't hear any of that right there. And then he says the challenges he faces every day. He says being on top of trends while keeping my demo in mind. This guy is reading like a program director. He wants to be a program director, and he's got the lingo down. Demo in mind. He's performing for the 35 and female demographic. My goal is to bring families together in the car and give them all, both parents and children, something they can relate to and talk together about. Oh, wow. So he does a show with a person named Amber Henderson, and the biggest, most proudest moment he has so far is starting the morning show. It's a lifelong dream. And then he does the thank you, and then advice for managers and executives of radio that can help them recruit more young and talented people. He says, give them an opportunity. I've been very fortunate in my career to have been surrounded by people willing to give me a chance. Yes, people you probably paid to get this chance. All right? I have been behind a microphone since I was 18 years old. Well, I was behind a microphone at 17 years old, buddy. I was able to find my voice and perspective quickly because I was trusted to do so. Dude, you were on college radio, so you kind of just learned as you went along like I did. And asked What would you like to see the radio industry be better at? He says, would love to see the radio industry embrace the digital era. No. Bullshit. Stop it. No. Radio industry needs to get back to what they were doing good. Live programming. Okay? They need to think like sportscasters. They need to be able to do stuff on the fly, live, call it as they see it. Play the music, know about honestly, they're supposed to be like sportscasters. Know about the players, know about the playbook, know about all of it. With great voices that compel, that draw people in. Okay? I don't need to be all damn Howard Cosell, but you know what? That was a great example. Radio needs to think like sports. They need to get back to live and local. They need to be able to get back to the music that people want to hear, not this contrived media-based bullshit where it's months and months behind because there's a control factor by all the major radio companies in the world that have a control as to what they want to play. They don't want to really play what people want to listen to. They don't want to compete against the streamers. They want to take the secondary market. And now they want to put their grubby little paws in podcasting. Podcasting is radio's birthright, right, Bob Pittman? It's the stupid things that I read about this. I just think it's very stupid. And it's ridiculous. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I won't say any more. I'm going to rest my voice. And I'll come back with another Broadcasters Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in, finding the show. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And by all means, follow me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. All the links are up there. Thank you all for finding the show. As you always do, come back from the Broadcasters Podcast next week because remember, content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast, presented by broadcasterspodcast.com and kingofpodcasts.com. The Broadcasters Podcast is brought to you by kingofpodcasts.com/Amazon. If Amazon is good enough for the King of Podcasts, it most certainly is good for you. kingofpodcasts.com/Amazon. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program. The Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at kingofpodcasts.com.